Hey, what's up everybody? It's Mike from Cornfield Customs and I'm back in the shop today and I want to talk a little bit about the most valuable tool a shop owner or an operator can possess, and that is the ability to say no. So stick around. So learning to say no is probably going to be one of the hardest but most valuable lessons you can learn in business. And it has taken me many years to be able to figure out exactly why you need to say no, where you need to say no, and how you need to say no, because no is the most important thing you can learn as a business owner. So let's go through some of the reasons why you need to learn to be able to say no. So the first reason you want to be able to say no is you have to think, do I really need this work? So in the beginning of business, it's very hard to say no because you're scared of the future. And you're new in business, you want to take on as much work as you can, get your name out there, make money, and just grow the business. So you get into that mindset of yes, 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 yes. We'll take all the work in and we'll do as much as we can and have as much throughput to make money, get the business established, and so on. But that puts you in a really bad habit of taking on every job that comes through the door. So that will lead us on to our next point is, do I really have the time for this job? So with time, you might want to take on the job either to help somebody out, or it's something you're really interested in, or there could be any reason you want to take this job on, but do you have the time? And that's a big problem because if you're a one-man shop like myself, it's so easy to get overwhelmed. And again, I've had to work through that because I've had employees and I've had plenty of work for them to do, and then employees leave, and I still have all that work. So it's a very delicate balancing act of, do I really have the time? And it could even be a 10-minute job that you could do in 10 minutes, but should you really take that on? Because one 10-minute job can lead to a multiple-hour job if one thing goes wrong, and it could throw you in a loop of kind of being scatterbrained. It could pull your focus away. So do you really have the time to take on that job? So that's another good thing to really take into consideration when thinking if you need to say no, because if you don't need the work, you need to say no when it comes through the door. If you don't have the time for the work, you really need to say no to the work as it comes through. Again, which just seems super counterintuitive because as a business, you want work and you want to make money and you want to produce, but you have to be realistic if you have the time and if you need that work. So that leads us to our next part is this really the type of work I want to be doing for my business? So again, in the beginning, you want to take on as much work as you can to grow the business, make money, and get established. That kind of evolves because eventually you're going to kind of specialize into what you want to do. So that's going to be tough as well, because if you take on all the work that comes through at the beginning and then you start to specify what you want, it's going to be hard to kind of wean out those jobs. But it's super necessary because in the beginning you might take on sharpening lawnmower blades and patching tires and pretty much anything you can do to make money to get the business going. So as you specify, like with me, in the beginning I did body, I did paint, I did some minor mechanical work, and I did a lot of different things to whatever it took to make money and get established. But now I don't want to do body work, I don't want to do paint work, I don't want to do mechanical work. So it was a very hard transition because people would come back and be like, hey, you remember you changed a cabin air filter in my Volkswagen 10 years ago, I've got some more mechanical work for you. And you'd be like, well, I don't do that anymore. And that's really tough to explain to a potential client or a returning client that you've kind of changed your business model. So you just don't want to get stuck into that habit of you're the guy that sharpens lawnmower blades or you're the guy that does all mechanical work if that's not really what you want to do. So if someone approaches you about doing a job that really isn't in what you want to be doing anymore, again, you need to be able to say no. And you're just looking out for your business and where you want that business to go in the future. Because if you get stuck staying in that arena of these are all the things I've been doing this whole time, but I want to be over here, it's a lot harder to get to that level when you have all these smaller piddly jobs that you're not really interested in, but you feel obligated to do. Another big thing you really have to take into consideration, and this took me a long time to start figuring out, and I still struggle with that today because you don't always know the type of person you're going to be dealing with. So you have to be able to figure out, is this the type of client, the type of person I want to be dealing with? And that could go into multiple things. I really try to feel out a customer as best as I can on multiple levels. And those levels are they financially and mentally prepared to take on a project of the size they're hoping for? What is their attitude like? How many other shops has this car been at, and why is it not there anymore? Because if you get into a project that is a large project, 6 figures or more, that could be a really big problem if they don't have the money to pay for it, if they just have a bad attitude, or if they're very unreasonable with their expectations for time frames, budget, and all of these other things that go into it. So I really try to figure out if this is the type of person that I want to be dealing with, as well as if it's, do I need the work, do I have the time for the work, and is this the type of work I want to be doing? So take into consideration, is this the type of customer that I want to be dealing with on a daily, weekly, or monthly time frame? Then you have to take into consideration, are the stresses of this project going to be worth it? And all of these things start to kind of tie in together if you haven't caught on to that yet. Because if you have too much on your plate and you take on another job, then that's going to add stress to your day-to-day life, and it's just going to compound and make things harder. If you have an unruly client, that's also going to add to the stress level of that project and the rest of the projects in your shop day to day. So you really have to check in and see, are the stresses of this project going to be worth it to me, the business, and the brand long term? And then you have to figure out how to move forward if they are or if they are not. And you have to check through the rest of the list to see if it's going to be worth it for you and your business. And this is probably going to be the most polarizing part of all of it. And this goes against everything I was taught as a kid about business and client or customer relationships, and that is that the customer is always right. And for me, that could not be farther from the truth. Your client, you do have to make them happy, you do have to meet their expectations, but they are not always right. And anybody that's been in a business situation long enough can tell you that you have to cater to a client enough to keep them happy and keep the project moving forward, but that doesn't mean that they're right all the time. They have a project in my shop from my experience and my expertise, so they are leaning on me to be able to have me guide them in the direction of the project. So you have to take that into consideration as well. Again, this goes into the stresses of the work. If you have a client that is constantly telling you how to do your job or how they don't like this, even though it's what you did and they just didn't understand what that would be, that adds to the stress level of this project and dealing with that client. So you kind of have to get a feel for them as what their expectations are for the project and just kind of feel them out. Because they are not always right, they don't always have all the information needed, and you have to be there to direct them in the direction they're going, but to not let them dictate how you're going to do your job, to the quality level you're going to do your job to meet their budget, or an unruly deadline or budget that they're trying to set for you. So that's kind of a little controversial, but the customer is not always right, and you need to learn how to say no to that customer on that specific section of the project. So there's a lot of different levels of saying no. So just to recap this, because I don't want this to get super long and drawn out, because it's just a simple concept, but you need to learn to be able to say no. And we'll go through the list that I already talked about. Do I need the work? That's up to you, but Sometimes it's no. Do I really have the time to take on any more work? Again, that's up to you, but you need to learn how to say no. If it's not the type of work you want to be doing long term, and you don't need the work and you don't have the time for new work, then you clearly need to learn to say no. If you get somebody that you feel is just going to be a problem client and you don't see eye to eye creatively or design-wise, the best time to say no is at the beginning. It makes everything so much easier and less messy down the road. Then, are the stresses worth it? If you're already kind of on the edge, stressed out enough as it is, taking on another project is just going to compound that, so you probably need to say no. And you need to learn how to tell the customer no when they are trying to make unrealistic demands or not good decisions on the project that A, won't look good and won't represent your business well. So if you build a car for someone, and I'm just using cars because that's what I do, but if you build a car for somebody that doesn't look good, it's ugly, it's offensive, there could be all kinds of reasons to why you should tell the customer no. You need to do that because it's going to represent your company long term. And the best thing I have found from that is people will come in and be like, well, can't you do that any cheaper? Or can't you just cut a couple corners? I'm not looking for a show car. The problem with that is once you say yes to that, they're not going to tell everybody who ever criticizes that, well, I told this guy to do that. It's always going to fall back on the designer or the builder. So you need to stand up for yourself and your brand and keep things at the level you want, your standards high, and shown in a positive light for your brand. So that is, to me, that's the most important, but so are all the other ones. And you need to learn how to say no, which I struggle with that a lot because I get overwhelmed and you don't want to just be like, no, I don't have time to do that, or no, you're wrong, or no, this isn't the type of project I want to be doing. You have to learn how to kind of let people down a little bit easier. So there's a lot of different ways you could do it. You could just say that, I'm too busy, I'm not taking on new clients, I'm not taking on new work. You could say that you're 15 years booked out. If they want to wait, they can wait. There's a lot of different ways of doing things, but you need to find the one that works good for you and just doesn't come off as super offensive. And sometimes you're going to get into an instance where you just need to lay down the law and say no. Sometimes people don't want to hear, well, I'm just too busy, or I can't take on any more work, or my workload's too big already, and they just keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and that goes back to this is not the type of customer I want to be dealing with. So you just have to lay down the law and say, no, I'm not doing your project. I don't have to give you a reason why. The answer is no. So find out what works best for you. Talk to some friends about it. Like if you're trying to come up with a plan of how to tell people no in different instances, run it by somebody before you do that. And I have found one good thing that really helps, especially if you're already in a working situation and you need to tell a client no for whatever reason. I like to do that over an email as well as a follow-up phone call. And the reason that an email is always good is you have it in writing. It's very clear, it's very defined, and it's in writing, and you can refer back to it, and the client can refer back to it at a later date. So I don't like to do things just completely over the phone or in person, because then it becomes a he said situation, and there could be different things that have been misconstrued or forgotten or misremembered. So I always like to have things in writing, especially when saying no on a direction of a project, or that I'm not going to take this on, or anything else. So that kind of ties into another video that will be later on about communication. But this video is all about learning to say no, where to say no, and the power it gives you as a business and how important it is to be able to learn to say no in your day-to-day business. So I'm going to wrap this video up because that's enough of me just babbling on, but I hope it was beneficial. There's going to be times that you're going to have to learn to say no in other instances that I've mentioned here. But the more you say no, the easier it's going to get and the better you're going to understand it. So I hope you guys found it beneficial, and don't be afraid to say no, because no is the most powerful thing you can do, and it really looks out for you and your best interests long term. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you're not liking the business videos, I apologize, but some people out there do like them, and I get requests for them all the time. So I appreciate you watching this, even if you didn't like it, and I appreciate you watching all my other videos that I'm really trying to push hard to get out and raise my level of quality and topics that I'm talking about. So drop down in the comment section, let me know what you think of this video, check out my other videos, please subscribe, please hit that notification bell, that way you're always getting up-to-date new releases of shorts and longer format content. If you like what I'm doing on this channel and you want to support me in another way other than just watching the video, check out my Patreon page that I'm working on to get a lot of good incentives for you guys. I'll drop the link to that down in the description below. So again, thank you guys so much for checking out this video as well as many of the others on the channel. And like I always say, get out there and make something, not excuses, and we will catch you on the next one.